Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Mayo. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, David. How are you?
Good. We're 2 days away from autumn.
2 days away from autumn, and we seem to have dodged the, which hurricane is this coming up? The Jose, I guess?
It's hard to
remember. It's hard to remember. There's another one coming after it, but all seems to be good right now, so it's great to be here.
Not bad. Just getting a little rain and wind today,
Right.
and that's fine. That's fine. And also with us this month is Bill Chetwynd from the Human Rights Commission and Reverend Bruce Taylor from the Unitarian Universalist Church. And what we're going to be talking about today is the partnership between the two groups and the upcoming speaker series in October. This is a first now.
Yes, yeah. We Human Rights Commission, I think, was established 2 or 3 years ago. Collaboration between the school committee and the Board of Selectmen, and Mr. Chetwynd, a founding member of it, former chairman.
Yep.
And Mr. Watts, who is now the current chairman and
Present chair, yep.
present chair, and
Yep.
initial member of the group. And we really thought about this years ago with everything that was going on in the world, and we needed a place where things could be talked about in a nice, calm atmosphere. We can talk about diversity and, do things happen that shouldn't happen. I think we all have, I'm sorry to say, we all have an implicit bias in ourselves. And I think that's unfortunate we do, but let's recognize it and let's talk about it. And we've gone into educating the community and doing a lot of events. And this is really the next series in that, is to bring in some speakers, some experts, I guess, to really talk about this.
Well, and first off, let's talk about how this came about, because Bill, really, you were instrumental in bringing the Human Rights Commission and the Social Action Committee together.
Yes, I was, because Sheila Moran from the Social Action Committee at the UU Church is a friend of mine, and she called me up one day and she said, we're kind of meeting and we're trying to figure out, we want to have a couple of speakers come in and talk about the subjects that they're going to talk about, and do you think the Human Rights Commission might be interested in helping? And I says, I don't know, I would think they would be, but why don't I come to your next meeting? And we'll find out. And from that meeting, I took it to the Human Rights Commission, and the Human Rights Commission decided they wanted to move forward with it. And I think I'm thankful for that, because I think we have to begin the conversation somewhere, and this is a good way to begin it. Okay.
Reverend Taylor, if you could please tell us a little bit about the Social Action Committee, what it is, how it was formed, and what they do within the structure of the UU Church.
Certainly. There are people in our congregation with many different concerns in the community, and our religious orientation is very much towards making the world a better place. And so a small group of folks, rather than individuals going off separately participating in activism or charity, there was an attempt to understand what our ministries to the community would be. So, for example, we raise funds for my brother's table, for the Boys and Girls Club. But in addition to that, we also want to do what we can to affect change. And the most basic way to do that is to educate, to raise awareness, and to foster dialogue. And so by partnering with a commission like yourself, we can combine our strengths and our perspectives. The process of collaboration and the process of helping people in the community not merely ends in themselves. They're also a way that we deepen our understanding and what we would call our spirituality in the process.
Let's talk about the speakers, because we've kind of focused on two sides of a very American historical issue. And so let's talk about that. Actually, the genesis of this came out of a local author, didn't it?
Well, it depends on, you could say that, because there was a lady from Winchester, whose name is escaping me right this minute,
Deborah
who
Irving.
wrote Waking Up White, who wrote a book, Waking Up White. And that was what I believe inspired the UU Social Action Committee to move forward, based on that book. And I was really kind of pleased that they came to us, because we, as a Human Rights Commission, it's good for us to know that we have allies, so to speak, in the community too, and that we can do things together. Because I think looking forward, we want to do more and more of that. And the two subjects that we're talking about, although I haven't heard either one, I haven't heard either one of the speakers speak myself. But the conversation about white, not white supremacy, but white privilege,
Yeah.
okay, is a good conversation, because I'm not sure most of us, I mean, let's face it, we're all sitting here, we're all white, and I'm not sure we really think a lot about the fact that we have privilege, okay? We don't think a lot about that, and I think it's time for us to begin that conversation, because that conversation leads into not just the following couple of weeks, which is actually the conversation about what Black Lives Matter is all about. And I've often thought that I personally think that all lives matter, but I think we have to start somewhere. And I think starting with the concept of the conversation around white privilege, and then moving on to one of the elements of where we have to move on is with the Black Lives Matter, because of what's going on in the country. I mean, it's just. And my hope is that, one, we'll do that, and that we can continue from there and go on to bring the realization forward that there are other groups of lives that matter too, because at the end of the day, all lives matter. So.
But I think in this series, we're attacking probably the core American subject that we have tried to deal with for nearly 400 years, and that is black versus white relations. And in fact, when you talk about white privilege, it was written into the original Constitution.
Yeah, it
You
was.
know.
And I think you're right, but once we, and I think that's the right thing to address initially. Okay?
Yeah.
And once people get really into that and understand that, then they'll be in a better position to move forward with other groups as well. But I do agree that this is the right place, absolutely right place to start, because of what you just mentioned.
Reverend Taylor, the first talk is on October 5th.
Yes.
And the speaker for that talk is?
Ken Wagner.
Okay, that's Ken up on the screen there. And he's going to be talking about understanding whiteness?
I believe so, and also why concerns for Black Lives Matter would be relevant to white people, why it's important that we are concerned about it. He's a Unitarian Universalist, and he's done a lot of work with churches, basically, so that people can just look at the role that white people play in keeping the vestiges of racism alive, whether it's intentional or not. We don't tend to think of, people tend not to want to think of race at all, but in fact, we have, in the wider culture, there's kind of a status quo, and people would prefer that this be invisible, that we now have laws that even the playing field, but it's actually beneficial to look at what the advantages and disadvantages really are, to take ownership of that and see how that we can change it.
And then the second talk is on Wednesday, October 18th, and that's going to be
Martin Henson, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's on why Black Lives Matter,
Yeah,
basically.
understanding the movement.
Understanding what Black Lives Matter is all
Okay.
about. And that's on that. I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to both of them, frankly, because I expect that I'm going to learn, regardless of what I think or feel or anything. I'm going to learn from both of these talks, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Right.
And I don't really know this gentleman, but I'm interested in what he's got to say. And he's involved, I believe, with the Boston Black Lives Matter group.
Yes, the
okay?
Boston chapter.
Yeah, as opposed to, there's a group in Cambridge, too, Black Lives Matter. So I'm looking forward to learning more about what is Black Lives Matter all about. You know,
Because
you
I'm
see
not
the
sure
words and you
that
think one thing.
people in general have an accurate picture of what the movement is about.
I think they don't.
Yeah.
I know. I don't think I do. So I think you're right. I think this will be a good experience for all of us, and I encourage everybody to come on down. And
Talks are going to be at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. at the Savings Bank Theater here in the high school.
Right, let's say that's at the high school.
At the high school,
At
yeah.
the high
it's-
school. Some people think it's at the Savings Bank.
Yeah,
No, it
not
is
at the
high
Savings
school.
Bank. That's right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Barney Frank did that the other night.
I know.
He went to
I
the
went to the
Savings
wrong
Bank,
place. Yeah. So the Savings Bank Theater at the high school, and the admission is free. So it's open to everyone.
So it's a good price.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the right
Now,
price.
Interestingly, one of the questions that came up when we spoke recently to the school committee is this an age-appropriate series for high school kids?
And I think we concluded that indeed it is. And in fact, the speakers have both told us that it's kind of a 13 and up type of thing, just like what grade the movies that are 13 and up or something?
PG?
PG? Okay.
PG-13.
PG-13,
Yeah, there you go.
PG-13 talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of concern, and I don't know where this has come from, about exposing our young people, whether they're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, to maybe a different view. I mean, we cannot, my wife and I have 3 boys. I think they're all reasonably enlightened. They're adults, youngest is 22. But you can't bubble wrap your kids and protect them from maybe a different point of view. Maybe they'll learn something. Maybe they'll disagree, and that's okay too. But they'll start the conversation and they'll talk, and they'll be exposed to something that maybe they weren't. So when I hear that age appropriate, this isn't going to be graphic and pornographic or anything like that. This is going to be maybe a different point of view than what you're used to. Maybe from what you did in growing up in a town that is, 90%, 95% in recent years white. Wakefield was half Italian, half Irish. Years and years ago, when Bill was growing up, they never crossed each other. Now it's a little bit different.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you did. But you know what I'm saying? I
agree.
I think that question almost drives me crazy when people say that. Is it age appropriate? Well,
you know what? The way you make changes in a society is through the generation coming up.
Right.
that's right.
Okay,
Right.
they're the ones, and I used the Irish battles that they were going on, and all of a sudden they decided they'd get both sides together, the young people of both sides together, and
Right.
things calmed down. So I think it's important for them to, and it's okay, to your point about, well, they may not agree, that's okay, because you know what?
Absolutely.
We need more people who don't necessarily agree but are willing to sit down and talk about things.
Because
Okay,
that's the
because-
way solutions,
That is the way solutions
that's
come
what
into
we
place.
tried to do 40 and 50 years ago, and now it's up to the generations following us
Yep.
to now follow through with that start. And hopefully they'll keep going where a lot of our generation kind of just stopped for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you didn't.
Maybe we stopped. Maybe we stopped. I don't
Some
know.
of us didn't, but quite a lot of that
Well, I think a
force
lot
that
of
was
things
there,
changed
yeah.
over here. Tell me, in technology, everything
Sure.
became the whole world in my lifetime. It's almost, well, I could almost write a comedy book about, what it was like when I was young and what it's like today. I mean, the difference is like, it's like night and day.
Change can be difficult, but
Yep.
Yeah.
people that are young, they're at the forefront of change. Sometimes they're able to make connections in ways that we did not think of. So whether this is age appropriate, I think it has to do with how grown-ups model dialogue,
That's
for one thing, but the content is about as appropriate as reading the paper, which we hope that they will do too.
Exactly.
The other thing is, you talk about the young people, and we have one of our commissioners is a high school youth. He's a sophomore, junior in high school.
Talat Aman, he's a junior
Talat.
this year.
He's a junior in high school, and we deliberately structured the commission that way so that we could hear the voice of the young people, and also because there's a diversity group in the high school, and I also believe he's active in that. That will work to everybody's advantage too.
Plus, we have the Metco kids at the high school too, and hopefully
That's right. That's right.
they'll be able to come to
And
this.
they participated with us last year when we did the Martin Luther King, and hopefully they're going to do the same thing this year. So,
That was a great program that the HRC put on, Martin Luther King holiday. It is amazing to me how, and what the Reverend was saying, and how things are different, is that how smaller the world has gotten for these
Exactly.
young people, and how they are, even with everything that's going on in the world. And, my son just got back from semester abroad in Italy, and it wasn't Italy, it was all over Europe, where he went, and we just had that horrible incident that happened to those poor BC kids, young women in Marseille, and what's going on. But for them, they've experienced so much. So what is age appropriate? What isn't this at 18, 19 years old, a couple of years removed from people that are in a high school, from young
Right.
people that are in a high school? They're experiencing these things all over the world. And isn't it wonderful of them to have an apartment in college or being away when they have someone who is a different color, different religion, vastly different religion, not another Christian religion, but a completely different religion they're being exposed to. And I think it's wonderful. So let's not bubble wrap them. Let's expose them. Let's let them learn. Let's let them start to think for themselves and take all this information in and say, you know what? I like what he said over here. I don't completely agree with him, but I want to talk to him about it.
Right.
And where can we find some? Because a lot of that's missing in the world today.
I know, and the kids are ready to do that.
Absolutely.
They're absolutely ready to do that. And for some
I think
reason,
more
we
than their
hold, if
parents
anybody
give
holds
them
them back,
credit
we
for.
do. We
Yeah.
as
Right.
adults do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the kids are ready more than their parents give them credit for, too. Because, the advantage as well as a disadvantage today is just the amount of news that's out there on a daily basis. And part of it is figuring out what's mainstream versus what's not.
Yeah.
What's fake news, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. True fake news.
True fake news. Yeah.
But at the same time also, like with our age group with Vietnam, and we're seeing this week the Ken Burns series on that whole period, the kids have choices they have to make to move the world forward. And hopefully they'll make the right choices.
And we've got to give them the information that they need to have those discussions and reach the right choices.
Right. Now, just so people understand, these aren't just talks. There will also be either a Q&A or breakout sessions within the auditorium afterward to kind of take it to the next step.
Give people a chance to pose questions and,
Do we know what each speaker is planning to do?
I do not. Doesn't mean we don't. I don't. I know, except that I know Ken Wagner is, in his normal fashion, often has breakout groups where he'll. And I think what we're looking to do is, at the theater, we'll have breakout groups, and Ken will just walk from group to group because there's room there for people to just gather together in a group. I know he does that. I'm not sure about Martin. I'm not sure how he does his. I'm not sure if that's his style or not.
Right. Well, even if it isn't his style, we will have, I assume, question and answers so that people can delve
yes,
into
we
the
will do that,
subject more deeply and hopefully walk away with a better understanding of the subject at the end of the evening. Reverend Taylor, what do we see this partnership between the Human Rights Commission and the Social Action Committee doing down the road?
Well, it's an interesting question. The folks in the Social Action Committee, some of them have lived here their whole lives, but I think that each of us can learn from the other as far as being aware of what's really needful in this community. There is so much going on in the world, and just getting a fix on how it's impinging on us here is very important. I would think it would, putting our heads together, would be able to focus on the issues that are most alive at this time.
Is this going to be a one-time only thing, or is this going to be
I
an
hope
annual
not.
thing?
I hope not. Not only do I hope we can do future programs with the UU Church, but also with other groups that are in town, because our plan is to reach out to as many groups as possible, and if there may be another group in town that would be interested in doing a program similar to this, maybe on a different subject, but the same
Right.
kind of thing. But my hope is that we will continue to have the relationship with the UU Social Action Committee, and that we can continue. I view this as the beginning of a conversation, so my hope is that we can continue the conversation.
In the same way that the Human Rights Commission has been partnering this year with Wakefield Against Violence, Wakefield Alliance Against Violence, WAVE, both at the farmers market and in other venues.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there are a lot of groups in town. Wake Up is a group that I think we should partner with in some way, shape, or form with the diversity group that's in the high school, because we can probably learn from them, because my understanding is that what they do is they actually teach classes. The young people that are in the diversity group actually teach classes to the other young people. So,
They've done a great job at the high school with these young people about. It started with, let's stop bullying. Be an advocate, not a bystander. And they start that at the younger age, and maybe in junior high, and you'd see her middle school, I guess, junior high, showing my age, right? And you'd see them talking about that. And then they go into the high school, a little bit older. They talk about celebrating diversity, and they have the diversity club, and they do actually go as juniors and seniors and teach, like you said, the freshmen and the sophomore about how to be more, open or accepting, understanding, questioning, certainly questioning, but engaging, I guess. It's not enough just not to bully, all right? We don't bully, but then let's engage with people that may be a little bit different for whatever reason. Whatever that difference is of our own. So I think they've done a great job, and I think if we could carry that over to us old curmudgeons, that would certainly help. And I think that's what this is all about. That's what the HRC is about in part. That's what these other groups are about in part. And I think that Wakefield actually has had a pretty good history in the last 20 years of, I think, celebrating some of these goodnesses, and really ignoring or shunning those that would, that would look to our baser interests. And I think that this is just part of it. I think it's great. And I think the selectmen were unanimously in support of it. I didn't see the school committee, but I'm sure they were very supportive. So I think that that's wonderful. And let's, beginning of the conversation, and we'll see this blow and blossom and what have us. So.
Actually, at the school committee meeting, Superintendent Kim Smith said that she would spread the word to the schools to hopefully get kids to come to the talks. But you just raised a very important concept that I think most people miss in what you were just saying, and that is questioning. There's not enough questioning today of what are accepted standards, ideas, concepts. And I think that's the other thing that we need to try and foster is okay, it was seen 50, 100, 200, 400 years ago as right. Is it still right?
And it's the questions that ultimately
Right.
extend the conversation and cause it to bloom. And
Yeah. There's nothing like having those young college kids come back and question everything.
well, I can
That's great.
remember.
I remember being one of them.
But you have to, the young people have to know, just like we have to know, that it's okay for somebody else to have a different
Right.
opinion.
Right.
And I can remember my days on the school committee when we often had different opinions, but we reached a point where we respected each other to the point where if we had different opinions, fine, you can disagree, but you don't have to be disagreeable. Okay, so
Right.
you disagree, fine. I mean, you think this and I think that, and as long as you stick by what you believe, and
It's also true that when people talk with each other rather than standing up and giving their opinion or talking at each other,
Right.
yeah,
they end up changing. They may not change their opinion, but at least they have a deeper connection
Yeah.
with the issues and often finding commonalities
Right.
that they didn't know were there. So the other person is not just the opponent.
yeah. Yeah, I
And
don't know
from
if
that
any-
makes solutions possible.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if any of you ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but he actually has a section in that writing, in that book, where he sets forth the concept that if you take two people who have varying opinions on how to solve a problem, put them in a room and they're willing to listen to each other and respect each other, they'll come out of the room with a third solution that's better than either one of the two they went in with. And that's where we have to get in this world, because we've got to come to realize that we're all in this together.
Right.
And I think that events like the speaker series, what the Human Rights Commission does, conversations that are had at elected boards, conversations that can be had at open town meeting, if they're respectful and opening, it's a great pushback against what sometimes is a national tone that is coming down that is demonizing those that have a different opinion. Sometimes, not all the time, but that is something that we actually, and I meet with the different mayors and managers around here, we see that creeping in, that civil discourse, creeping in our own little cocoons. So it is something that's why I'm so grateful that these events are happening. You might not agree, that's fine, but listen to it, think about it, question it respectfully. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't, but so be it.
And on that note, unfortunately,
We're all
we
done.
have run out of time. Thank you very much,
you.
Bill and Reverend Taylor, for coming today.
Can we give those dates again for the people?
October 5th?
October 5th is Ken Wagner, and October 18th is Martin
Henson.
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 And they're
Perfect.
both in the Savings Bank Theater at Wakefield High
High school.
School.
Yep, at Wakefield High School.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, please come and join us, and, get involved in the discussions afterwards. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining
Great day.
us. See you next month.